Do you like country music? Head down to Morris, Manitoba, July 25th, 26th, and 27th for the Howl at the Moon Festival. This year's festival features a number of high-profile acts, including Lone Star, Emerson Drive, and Dean Brody, as well as a host of local Manitoba artists such as Greg Arcade, Franny Klein, Aaron Starr, Chris Michael, and many, many more. The festival started as an event to bring a huge opportunity to local Manitoba artists by having everyone sharing a huge bill, and it's only grown since its inception. There will be shuttle buses from various locations if you can't drive, there's camping, day passes are available, weekend-long festival passes are available, and a lot more. You can find tickets and more information at howlatthemoonfest.com, and be sure to follow the festival on Facebook or Instagram. This episode of the podcast is my conversation with experimental ambient drone artist Greenhouse, aka Curran Ferris. He's been releasing music in the city for a number of years now, and we get deep into what makes an experimental record. It's one of those genres that I'm very interested in, but I find it difficult to approach from an interview perspective because it doesn't have that familiarity that pop music, rock music, hip-hop, country, punk rock, they all have a very specific format, and I find that experimental music, especially of this type, doesn't follow any of those guidelines. So while I'm very interested, I'm definitely coming into the genre without a lot of background information. So it's a fun conversation, I learn a lot. His music, as we get into, is maybe not what you expect when you hear the term drone. And keep listening to the podcast to find out why, but it was a very enlightening conversation. I'm glad that I had a chance to sit down with him, someone who's making very exciting and very original music, and we get into the background, how he started it, what his inspirations are. We talk a lot about cassette culture. He's released the vast majority of his discography solely on tape, and if you're a regular listener to this show, you know how much I appreciate that, and a lot more. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by our friends at the Park Theatre, Winnipeg's premier concert and event venue. If you want to find out all the great shows they have coming up, go to myparktheatre.com.
You're listening to Garbage Hill, Winnipeg's first podcast network.
Welcome to Witch Police Radio. I'm in what is it, front porch, I guess you call this?
Yep.
Yeah, it's always a change week to week, but this is kind of nice. And I'm here with someone who hasn't been on the show before, but I feel like I've been aware of you and your music for a long time.
Okay.
I don't know when I first heard the name and when I first, but I have a lot of questions, so it's good that we're here. But before we even get into any of that, if you want to just introduce yourself, and maybe just if you could do a quick kind of summary of what it is that you do, because I find that, well, start there.
Okay.
And then yeah.
Sure. My name's Curran Ferris. I record and perform as Greenhouse, which is a experimental music project, I suppose, using guitar and primarily, yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
That's about it, yeah.
And you have like a pretty extensive amount of music out there.
Yeah.
Mostly on tape, right?
Mostly on tape, yeah. It started in like 2008 or 9, around there. And yeah, I should know how many releases I have. It's not like some staggering amount.
No, but I mean, there's quite a bit though. Like you have a relatively deep catalog at this point of
yeah, it's
work.
maybe like 5 or 6 or 7 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when I first heard about Greenhouse, the term drone was always attached to it. And that's one of those genres of music that I find very hard to know what it is before I go into it, if that makes sense. Like, because I think a lot of people have an idea in their head when they hear drone of something very abrasive.
Right.
And something very kind of, almost feedbacky and really raw. And yours music is not that. I mean, yours is much, I don't know if you agree with this description, but much prettier.
Sure.
Like, it's much more melodic, and it obviously shares some of the qualities with what the drone that I'm describing, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely less harsh, I guess, is maybe a way to put it. I mean, do you use that to describe it, drone, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly like particularly like some of my earlier stuff was more more droney
Right, yeah.
than like what I'm trying to do now, or
Okay.
you know, things that I'm interested in. But it's always still there, because I mean, you know, I'm a fan of artists that you know that use drone
Yeah.
a lot, so it's always there. And then I think using guitar, or at least the way that I try to use it or try to take it or push it, I still sort of end up like using drones or you know sustained chords or tones.
Yeah, like that element's there for sure. But yeah, I do. It's not. There's not the electronic thing that a lot of people, I think, myself included, kind of automatically assume is going to be there. Because I've heard people playing what they have called drone, and I'm definitely not an expert on the genre.
Yeah.
But it's very. I don't know if it's electronic, but it's heavy and it's really distorted and
Sure.
and hard. And yours is like yeah, it's soft, but in a
Yeah.
good way. Like I don't mean anything bad by that. Like it's soft and it's like. Yeah,
It's soft.
It's
yeah.
soft. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I think so. Like it's. I would agree. I
Yeah.
would agree with that.
But it's almost like it's lyrical without having lyrics. Like it seems like what you're doing it evokes what I think singing does, but instrumentally, if that makes sense.
I think so. Yeah. 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 It's funny. Like there's. I think kind of as I've like been doing this, I've kind of come to realize that like I think my interest, or a way that I describe it to maybe someone that hasn't heard it, is just like I'm trying to make electronic music, but I've only ever learned to play the guitar.
Okay.
I don't have anything else. So it's kind of this thing where I'm, you know, kind of like pushing up against and then also kind of embracing maybe the limitations of the electric guitar.
Okay.
And I think that, and then just years of playing guitar too, I think there's just certain tendencies that I just can't get away from.
Sure.
And I think that that's maybe what you would be talking about, is that kind of melodicism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you always been doing this kind of stuff solo? Like, I mean, when did you start sort of experimenting in this way?
I mean, it was always an interest of mine, like just as a fan and a listener for a long time. And then it was probably around, I don't know, 2000, maybe like like 2007, somewhere around there. And it was like going to like send and receive.
Yeah.
And meeting, people from that community. And to tell the truth, like one of the first sort of people who encouraged me to do that was Chris Cole, who's like a renowned sound artist and was the creative director of Send and Receive for a long time.
Until recently, right?
Yeah, until very recently, yeah. And so she had said, we were we're having like a coffee or something, and she just said like, I think like there's more people, like you should just keep doing it, like, because I said like, I'm kind of like messing around with stuff like quietly in my apartment, and she was like, more people should do that, like just like go ahead and do it. And so I think it was kind of a nudge from, well, more than a nudge, from someone like very involved in the community here.
Someone established, and yeah,
and then also seeing that like, oh, they're actually like there's people here that are doing this. There's there's a scene. There's there's infrastructure.
Yeah.
There's people to like meet and play with and like learn from.
So you can take it out of the apartment and actually,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which, was like crucial.
Yeah. Was there ever, I mean, when you were first started doing this stuff, were you planning originally on sort of making it into more of a larger project than just you, or were you always sort of wanting to just perform solo?
It was always me, mostly because I think at the time I was kind of in between bands.
Okay.
And yeah, it was just, I think it was in between bands, and then I was teaching guitar at the time.
Okay.
So I would have the apartment to myself during the days, and while my partner was at work.
Sure.
And then, like, I would have to be at work at 4, so I'd have all this time, and then...
And that's when other people are at work usually, right? So
exactly, yeah. So I could push the volume just a touch, but yeah, it was a way to, like, one, like, you know, sort of experiment and try something new.
Yeah.
But then also, what I also liked about it was just kind of like turning off the sort of like music. I'm doing air quotes.
Yeah.
The music sort of side, or regular guitar playing, certainly.
Sure. Like the structure of it and everything?
Yeah, and really trying to kind of like, just do something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're writing stuff now, is there a loose structure, or is it all fairly freeform?
There's always a bit, whether it's like something that's on a record or a tape, or something I'm doing for a show. There's always a bit of a skeleton in there.
Okay.
Certainly when I'm recording at home, I can sort of more frequent, like I'll have all these like incoherent notes in my phone, or like scribbled down, where it's like, try doing this and running it into that, and so that's maybe a bit more premeditated than
just strictly freeform.
Yeah, and it's become more that than those earlier releases, where it's just like, I'm going to record now, and
that's the recording, and
hope that it would be okay.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's more kind of like, okay, I want to try this idea.
Well, maybe just to go back to what you were saying before about how many releases you have.
Yeah.
If that was the way you're doing it before, why don't you have more? I mean, like,
Exactly.
how do you kind of select which pieces were worth releasing or worth kind of carrying on from the initial? Yeah.
I don't have a great answer for that. I mean, I think part of it was, I think part of it was the, like, in those early days, like, actually having a decent sounding recording that was good. And then it would just, like, it's always been, I mean, the one advantage, and it's a blessing and a curse, is that it's compared to a band or working with other artists, this is just my schedule. So if, home life is crazy and busy or whatever, like, what, that's okay.
You take a break from doing it until you have time. Yeah,
as opposed to being in a band and, like, you know, this is the blessing and a curse. Like, it's great because it's just my schedule I have to contend with, but then it's also like it's fine.
Right.
I'll do it later.
You can put it off.
So I definitely am guilty of that, and don't have the, like, other bandmates to go, like, no, like, it's Thursday, we're jamming or whatever. And then I think part of it too is just kind of a, like, I don't know, just hopefully a bit of self-editing and just kind of not wanting to do, like, every idea that comes across, or rather record it and just go, I'll record it and see. And then I tend to sort of sit on it for, like, a week or whatever, and then come back and just listen to it. Like, what was that again? And then, like, kind of first impression, like, nope, don't like this. Then that's that.
Go on to the next one.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in those recordings? Like, what kind of, what makes you want to keep that or actually release it? Like, when you're listening back to everything you've done,
right?
How does one stand out? I mean, because again, if you don't have the traditional structure, not the lyrics are important, but I mean, like, you don't have a sort of a way to identify. Oh, this I like this line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it the same thing with the guitar parts though? I mean, you think, oh, this riff or this drone or the sound, like,
I think
speaks to you, or
definitely that's definitely part of it. Yeah, again, I'm not going to answer this really well because I'm not really sure. I just I mean, I think part of it is just kind of the, like, it's, again, maybe it's like a simplification, but just sort of like, does this sound like something that I would want to listen to, or something that I would listen to? And yeah, I mean, I think that maybe that's not like such a groundbreaking answer, but, like,
but that's a good answer. I mean, that's
trying to create something that, like, that I want to hear.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to hear?
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's the follow up to that question.
I don't know what I want to hear. I mean, I've always, using, like, using the guitar and then using guitar gear, or gear that's mostly used for guitar. I've always really tried to, like, if I'm creating a loop, I really want to make it not sound like a loop.
Okay.
I think I'm maybe starting to fall back on that now, but certainly that, like, I sort of have those kind of things. So, like, if something sounds too, like, oh, that's like a loop pedal that's being used, like, to my ear anyway, I'll be like, okay, unless, that's not always the rule, but so there's those sort of things, or sort of tendencies that I try to shy away from, or try to obscure, like, something as basic as, like, the attack of me, like, playing a string. Try to, like, take that out. So really, that's definitely one criteria, is, like, am I sure what's going on anymore?
Right.
Or, like, I mean, I always am, but, do I know what's going on or not? Does it sound too obvious? Isn't maybe not the right word, but is it too, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but
I think I get what you mean, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's cool. It's cool. So when you play these live, I mean, are you recording the type of stuff that you can also reproduce live, or is it completely different?
It's completely different. Unfortunately, I mean, I get into this habit of, like, kind of like working at stuff at home in fits and starts, or maybe, like, I'll use these 3 pieces of equipment and try to get this idea to work, and just record it, and then, like, I'll do these other tracks that'll have a different configuration of gear, But then live, it's almost like, okay, well, I've been working over here, but now I have to play a show.
Yeah.
So now I have to figure out, one, what to do, and then two, like, if any of, like, so no, most of the time, like, there's been sort of like maybe like melodies or kind of like themes from previous releases that I've been able to kind of build in, but not in the sense of like, oh, now, like if someone knew a release and saw me play, I don't think I would be able to do anything. We're like, oh, it's that thing now.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the first song side too. Yeah,
yeah,
no, okay, that's cool. Do you think of it more? I mean, do you think of them as songs, or is it different? Because I mean, again, with the structure and everything, it's not necessarily following any kind of traditional song setup. So is it like, do you call them songs, or?
I do, just for lack of a better term.
Yeah. I don't know what the other term would be. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would call them. I mean, I guess, it could be called like a piece or a track. A piece seems to sound like it's been composed.
It does, yeah.
And I wouldn't use that word to describe what I do either. So, I don't know. Songs is fine. Songs works. Yeah.
Do you? I mean, like, composed again? Yeah, you're right. It sounds like it's been written, but I mean, it seems almost like you're mentioning kind of themes and things coming back. And that's almost something that exists in composed music. I mean, in, like classical music, for example, right?
Sure.
Or jazz, even, especially, like, recurring themes, even if there's chaos going on kind of everywhere else. So I mean, are you sort of, do you focus on that if you have something that really stands out? Do you try to reuse the themes and return to them on maybe on over an entire project or over a live show or things like
that? I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's certainly been like, I mean, a theme could be like, I really like what happens when I use like this pedal and this pedal and do this. Or it could be sort of a like, there's been, certain like, melodies or even chords, that I've used, like, or, sort of stumbled upon, like recording at home, that I'm like, okay, like, I got to remember that. And use it, again, to sort of like plot out a live set or something. But I think more the way that it works, or maybe live is a better way to like answer that question, is it's more about like sort of mapping out some like ideas, or again, scene sounds too formal, but sort of like not, I do want to have some movement in there, and I tend increasingly to think of it in terms of like, okay, well, what, like, what pieces of gear, what configurations are sort of like making that happen.
Sure.
Like a patch, like like a synth, a modular synthesist would, have patches and stuff that kind of work, and then then another one starts. So it's kind of more like that, and that's kind of how I like sort of know where I'm at, or try to put those bones together to go like, okay, I'll make my way through.
this might be a weird question, but are your, what they're calling songs, we'll call them songs for the
Sure.
sake of songs, do you feel, are they about something? Like, is there emotion behind it, or is it just the sonics that you're going for?
I don't know I mean, maybe afterwards.
Okay. Like once you've recorded it,
Yeah. I don't know if there's, I mean, maybe in the past there's been, I don't know if I like sit down and go like, I'm going to make the most like miserable sounding.
Right, yeah.
But then if you listen to my stuff, I mean, none of it, it's not like, I'd say it's all kind of like dreary or maybe melancholic, but
is that maybe just a factor of the kind of the tempo of it, and
I think it's the
I mean, the droniness of it, right?
The droniness of it, and I mean, it's probably all in the same key.
Okay.
Yeah. If like I were to like go back and try to figure it out,
transcribe the
it's probably all in the same key, and it's probably in a minor key. So that probably helps too, but yeah.
But there's not. I mean, it's more about the sound you're producing versus the feeling behind the sound, right? Is that safe to say?
I mean, I think I tend to gravitate towards stuff that is like, you know, drearier, and certainly like a lot of the electronic music that I like sort of has this sort of feeling like very austere and kind of chilly. And it's why I like dub a lot too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
because it has that those feelings attached to it. So I think that all that is kind of in there, or those are the sounds that I like. So I think it's stuff that I want to hear.
I was noticing a big Showdown record in the window there.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I find that dub is something actually that comes up with a lot of people that maybe you don't expect would listen to dub, just because of again, it's the sparseness of it, right? It's like making so much happen with so little. Like it's deconstructing something, and just you can have one drum hit and it like echoes for 20 minutes. It sounds amazing, you know. And versus people expect you need to cram everything in there to make some kind of a feeling. But it's
dub, like I'm a total late comer to dub, but it's like I have like there's so many like genres or like artists where like, you know, people are like, oh, like if you listen to that you got to listen to like this before. And I feel like dub, when I finally like just got into it or found the records that like where I was like
the right ones,
right ones, where I was like, oh, okay, it was this missing piece of the puzzle that like from experimental music to like hip hop and like everything electronic music, I was like, oh,
this is where this comes from.
Now I get it. And so it really like it almost like it shone a light on like the sort of experimental music records that I really like. I was like, oh, now I get where this is coming from, and now like it's just it's been a total game changer.
That's awesome.
I love it so much.
Well, I guess someone who listens to excessive amounts of reggae, I always have, right? And like to me, one of the things I always like about just reggae in general, whether it's dub, whether it's dancehall, whether it's root stuff, whatever, is what's not being played. It's like the spaces in between are so much more evocative than even sometimes what's actually being played. It's just like the way it's spaced out and the way the silence fits, you know? And I think that a lot of experimental music makes good use of that as well. Because, I mean, especially if you're doing a solo project and it's just you, there are going to be times when you're not playing something, or you're playing something very minimal. And you have to be able to evoke a feeling that maybe a full band would be able to do with 5 guys, which is a much easier job on their part, right? Like, so. Yeah,
and I mean, well, I think one of the biggest like lessons that dub has taught me listening to it is spaciousness, but especially like as a guitarist, I mean, my favorite guitarists have always been ones that don't overplay. I was never, my favorite guitarists were never the ones that like could play like the million-mile-an-hour solo. But in the work that I do with Greenhouse, I still will listen back and go like, like I'm playing even if I'm doing like the most minimal amount of playing, it's like I'm still playing too much. I don't need to play too much. So it's really like, and it's a good challenge, you know, to try to like play even less. I've always said my dream is to to have a guitar but not actually have to play it, to just do everything on the
yeah,
table.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's
like,
there if you need it.
Exactly. Or just like just somehow have like one thing happen on the guitar, like play it, touch it once.
Yeah.
And then the rest is all here, but that's not possible. But dub for sure, like there's just listening to it and just like hearing the space and trying to go like, okay, how can I like make that feeling happen with like the tools that I have.
I remember reading an interview with Lee Scratch Perry, and he said that the type of music he was trying to make was that it felt like you were stepping in glue. And I really like that description of it, because it totally describes exactly what it sounds like. Listen to that kind of stuff, like just but it's a cool just way to visualize it, like
totally stepping glue. And there was a book. It's like is it Michael Veal who just it's a book called Dub.
Okay, I think I've seen that. I've read it, but
it's really good. But yeah, there's like quotes like that in there that are so great, and just the like this way, like using like fairly like everyday kind of like effects and equipment to just like open up this whole new world that's just like totally like when you're listening to it, like they're playing with time, they're playing with space. Could go on
and it's super minimal too, which
so
is crazy.
Yeah.
So does that, is there a challenge for you to stay minimal? I mean, because I imagine with what you're doing, there's probably a tendency sometimes to get like as many pedals as humanly possible, right? And just load up on that. Like, I mean, that's what I'd be doing.
I mean, my biggest thing has always just been to play as little as I like is interesting to me, which like I'm my own worst enemy, so I'll often just play more or listen back and go like, oh, I was moving way too quick, or I was not giving something enough time. As far as gear goes, the great thing is not the great thing. I mean, I'm limited financially, so
you can't buy some ridiculous.
And I think that like it does encourage you to like to use what's there. Or like, when you're up against the wall and you need that other piece to do the thing you want to do, then it makes sense. So but I feel like I buy the same type of effect every like 4 years. It's like I bought a delay pedal. What's the difference? Well, it does like one thing that the other one didn't do. So I try to keep it. I mean, I still have a bunch of gear, so I wouldn't call it minimal, but in terms of what you could do,
you could go out of control with that for sure.
But I like to try to keep the sort of like within ear to like trying to obscure like what's doing what. I mean, there's amazing like pedals that like boutique companies are making, but I feel like they also start to have that like, even if it's a super wacky sounding pedal, it as soon as you hear it.
It's a guitar pedal.
Or it's like, oh, it's that pedal. Like,
because you've heard enough people use it, and
Which is, again, maybe I'm just justifying the fact that I can't afford them. I don't know.
But no, I mean, if you can do it without having to go out and buy all this stuff, I mean, that's obviously it's working for you, right? Like, I mean,
maybe, I mean, I'm sure they're the like the music that I've always wanted to make could just be done on a laptop, but I don't know how to use one, so so I don't.
Do you hear sounds from, whether it's consciously or not, from records you're listening to that I mean, dub's a good example maybe, but in other genres that kind of seeps in? Like, I mean, if you're listening to, can you pick up sounds in your recordings that like, oh, this must have been influenced by insert band here kind of thing?
Right.
Or is it too kind of abstract for that?
I don't know if it's abstract. I mean, it's nothing like, what am I trying to say? I don't think I'm that good that I've like created something that's like that unique.
Oh yeah, your influence is going to come through no matter what you're doing, right? But do you hear them? Like, what do you listen to, I guess, outside of things that maybe directly influence this stuff?
Right. Well, I mean, the whole sort of like my sort of gateway into like experimental music, I guess, was like heavier music. So bands that were on like Hydra Head Records, and like Southern Lord, and probably others that I can't think of, but I mean, Hydra was still am like a huge
Yeah.
fan of their back catalog. And so like labels like that would have, like either just loud, heavy bands.
Yeah.
They would have like passages or parts of an album or a track on a record that would be like weird soundscapey stuff, but it was
Totally, yeah.
being made by like instruments that I, when I was 18 or 19 or in my 20s or whatever, I was like, okay, I don't know exactly what's going on, but I know it's like guitar, bass, and drums.
Yeah, so it can be replicated. Yeah.
I kind of know what's going on. So, I mean, I'm not far. I mean, I still listen to all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that stuff's always there.
I can relate to that, though. I mean, I got into a lot of instrumental stuff, like jazzier instrumental stuff, through some later Black Flag records.
Right.
It's like, which doesn't seem like it should work, but it totally made
Yeah.
sense. Like, yeah.
It's just how you hear the thing, you're like, oh, now I understand
Yeah.
this over here.
Yeah, exactly. Now I go to this, and this is totally different instrumentation, but I get it because I liked what these guys were doing, and I got into them because I wanted to hear punk rock. And yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that, I don't know I think in terms of like volume, maybe when I play live, some of that stuff is in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still using like, 212s and like a 412 and 100-watt head and stuff.
When I guess you could potentially use something much smaller.
I could,
Yeah.
But I think, and maybe it's again just from that coming up on that kind of music and playing in those bands.
Yeah.
Previously, it's just like, no, I still want.
You want some volume.
I still want that there, or like
Yeah.
it's just me up there, and I want to have like, the sound.
Yeah, for sure.
Happen.
For sure.
Yeah.
And like we were saying before, most of your stuff's been released on tape, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was that a personal aesthetic choice, or was that just because tape seems to be one of the formats that works for that kind of music? Or both?
It's both. I mean, yeah, like Chris Jakes and Cole, like the stuff that they did with Prairie Fire tapes, like that was...
Yeah.
They came up to me and were like, we'll do a tape. I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And certainly like at that, like those early releases too, that was a lot of this like genre at the time. There was just like, it was just tapes and CDRs.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like making the jump from CDR to tape was like, oh man. Like,
Yeah.
got it on tape. But I mean, I'm also like a record collector, so hopefully down the road
Yeah.
something happens on vinyl. But
I think that's pretty much everyone's
that's
music's
everyone's
dream, right?
Yeah,
It's just the
that's not
cost is
unique at
so
all.
unrealistic that
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, tapes are great, and
Yeah.
like I think it's great that like it's a physical thing and that people are into it and excited by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's always interesting because I mean, I was actually listening to another podcast today. I'm not going to name it, but if they're listening, they know who they are. And they were interviewing another local musician who I also know, and they were talking about tapes, and as if like they're younger, you know, they're in their 20s, all these people, and they were just having this conversation about how they can't understand why anyone would want to listen to a tape.
Oh yeah.
And to me, I was getting mad listening to this. I'm like, what? Because I never stopped listening to tapes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess it is a format that has kind of not a reputation, but it has like a, you know, there's people who listen to tapes, and then there's people who will never ever go near them.
Yeah.
Because either they didn't grow up with them, or it makes no sense to them in 2019 to buy a tape.
Yeah.
Like, do you care about that at all? I mean, I know your stuff's available online, Bandcamp and things too, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, is it like, do you ever consider the viability of tape? I mean, I love tapes. I'm glad that they still exist. I'm glad there's labels still do it. I mean, I'm wearing a Dub Ditch shirt.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, but like, do you ever consider that, like, the kind of whether more people might be hearing it if it wasn't put on tape, or do you care?
I mean, I think because I've always like preferred physical formats.
Yeah.
The fact that like a label was willing to like create a physical format.
Yeah.
That was my music was like, that's like exciting enough.
Living the dream, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe to go another way, if someone wanted to do like, if it was like a digital only label, maybe I don't know, maybe I shouldn't even say that. Maybe I'd be less inclined.
Sure.
Like
sure.
I think it's important for music, or it's important to me anyway, for there to be, you know, a physical object if someone wants it.
Totally, yeah.
I mean, that said, like, maybe I'm just full of shit, because there's amazing releases that I bought that are just digital only. So maybe it's my own thing, but I mean, I think everything that I've released is available digitally too. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's there for, the labels, I think too. I mean, I haven't self-released any tapes.
That's my next question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did some like CDR stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm like not fully. I'm sure maybe the tape labels, if you ask them, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, never."
No, that guy. Yeah.
Digital only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much of that stuff is still? I mean, I don't know if in print is the right word because it's all small tape labels. But I mean, how many of those albums are still out there physically? Because I know it's all, you know, you can get it all online, right? But
yeah, I think some of the stuff that, like the Prey Fire Dub Ditch stuff, I feel like most times when I see Chris, he's just like, "Oh, and I've got like a shoebox full if you want them." But maybe that was a while ago and I'm wrong. Definitely some of that stuff went and is gone. And then like the last release that I did on AVA Records, which is, he's based in Belgium.
oh, cool.
That sold out pretty quick. And then I think the one before that, which is on Geology, which is in the US, I think there's still copies of that floating around.
Cool.
So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm sort of one of those like heavy hitting, like sell out in like in an hour type of artists.
But these are all short runs, I'm assuming too, right? Like for the short
short.
runs in there, so they're I guess like limited availability.
Yeah, and I mean maybe that's like, I don't know, the economics of like running a tape label, but
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
You get it to the people, you know how much you want, like how many people will maybe buy a tape.
Yeah.
And if people don't buy a tape, they can just get it on
Keep them in a shoebox, and eventually someone will come around and buy them.
Yeah.
Do you feel there's a progression, like from tape to tape, in terms of how your sound has changed? Like,
oh yeah,
like it's noticeable if you.
Yeah, and I think it's the things we were talking about before, just like trying to break down certain habits or certain tendencies, or like getting some new piece of gear that's just like, oh, finally I can do, like I've had those moments, so where it's like one piece of gear changes the whole
Yeah.
changes the whole game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's definitely a progression away from like it would be interesting to re-listen to the first stuff I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully there's a progression. I'm certainly like
That's
listening.
what you want to do, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you would hope after these years, yeah.
Yeah, trying to like do different things, trying to achieve different things, trying to play less.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the next thing you're working on? The next project?
I have a tape that's coming out this summer.
Okay.
On a Winnipeg-based label called Macade Star, and I'm really sorry if I mispronounced it. I haven't heard the word spoken. It's
right.
Makade Star, and that's called Three Walls. It's just 2 tracks. It's about like 20 minutes long.
Okay.
And then I'm just kind of slowly chipping away at stuff at home to try to have an album length amount of material done and figure that out. So
when you're releasing something that's 20 minutes long, it's just 2 tracks, how do you decide that that's kind of the length of it? I mean, versus an album length, again, because of the lack of song structures and things like that, right? How do you know this is sort of like, okay, this is going to be this project, this release?
Right. For the new one that's coming out, it's a tape label, so I knew that's the format.
Right, you get the size, you get the length,
and then that one, like I had the A side track like more or less kind of there, and I was like, okay, this is like roughly 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do another like
to fill up side B kind of
thing.
thing?
I'm gonna do one around the same length with an eye to like. Then that way the label just goes like, yep, it's a 20-minute tape.
Right, good to go.
We can do it. Yeah, instead of like 10 minutes and like 25 or something weird.
Right.
So that was maybe but I mean, again, that was also kind of a way to kind of what's the word? Like sort of limit myself or try to keep me on a bit of a deadline to go like, okay, like it's got to be 10 minutes long. The A side is like this. The B side could maybe be something else, but like at least start with that. And then,
that makes sense. Yeah. Being constrained by the format versus by what the idea is, right?
Yeah, exactly, and just again with I don't often have like tons of stuff like in the can, kind of ready to go.
Yeah.
So to try to keep myself on task and like, oh yeah, I'll do like a tape, and then like 2 years goes by.
yeah.
Was just like, no, okay, just like, limit it by time or limit it by, in the same way I'll go like, okay, use these 2 things.
Yeah.
And just see if something good can come out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know we just mentioned, what's in print, what's not in print still. But if someone wants to find out more about your music or just kind of hear through the catalog, what's the best option? Is it Bandcamp or?
Yeah, it's greenhousedrone.bandcamp.com.
Okay.
And everything is there. Like some of the labels, if it's not like readily available there, it'll be a link to.
Yeah, I found a few of those, and there's links
just
to the label. Yeah.
So that people can support them.
Okay.
Yeah. And
then physical copies are basically through the labels, I guess, if they still have any, or.
Yeah, like I usually have. I have like some. So I mean, people could
track you down.
Track me down, or like come to a show. But I think even the most recent release I did, which is amazing, was that after the show I was basically out of copies.
That's awesome, yeah.
Which was really cool, which is really exciting. So
yeah.
But yeah, Bandcamp, or I think there's like a contact thing in there. People could find me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then do you have any shows coming up in the near future?
Nothing is planned. I'm trying to figure out a release show for this forthcoming tape.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But it'll be, I don't know when it'll be, in the summer sometime, hopefully.
Cool.
So.
What kind of venues are you usually playing at?
These days, it's a little trickier. There's stuff that happens at like Ace Art.
Yeah.
Is a possible venue. And then there's a amazing group of people running shows out of Video Pool.
Okay.
Or up there. They do like a I don't think it's
like at the Cinematheque building.
Yeah, they do it there, but on the second floor. It's called Temporal Contours.
Okay.
And they do. I haven't played there yet, but they do, in terms of the community and the scene, they do really important stuff, like curating artists that haven't played before.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Or maybe artists that are doing collaborations. So that's another venue for experimental music in Winnipeg in general. The last show I played at was at Gary Street Coffee.
Okay.
Yeah, so it tends to be not...
You're not doing the bar shows and stuff?
No, I mean, like, I've played at Handsome Daughter and Goodwill.
Yeah.
But, I mean, most of the time we're talking about, like, a smaller venue or, like...
Yeah, probably more intimate, I would imagine, right?
More intimate or, like, certainly, like... Depends who else is on the bill. Sometimes, like, the work that people do is really, really quiet. And, like, if someone, like, orders a beer, like...
It ruins the whole,
thing.
Yeah.
So you got to be in kind of, like, a specific space. So.
Cool. Okay, well, yeah, people should check out the Bandcamp and, listen to the back catalog, I guess, and stay tuned for the new one.
Totally.
If you want to hear more episodes of this show, go to witchpolice.com. All 390 whatever episodes are there for free download and streaming. And if you tune in on Sunday nights at midnight, you can hear... past episodes on 101.5 UMFM, and those are episodes from a few months after they come out in podcast form. So this is June now. Might not air till the winter or something. But the cool thing is, if you happen to be listening to the radio at midnight on a Sunday, this is on. You can just go right out and download a bunch of albums. As soon as you get home from your drive or whatever. Yeah. So
perfect time to listen.
Yeah, exactly. It's the best time to listen to radio, midnight on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for having me.
Cool.